The Polynesian Panthers were willing to take on a system that was unfair. We have the right to protest, to speak out against the injustices that our people were facing. Our legacy is that we've stayed on the right side of history all our lives, and we haven't changed.
What we're saying to the young people out there is you have to stand up strong in your own mana. Surround yourself with like-minded people and go for it.
As a tamaita i Samoa, I have spent much of my time in the activism space, working to serve my communities through advocacy, education, and supporting spaces for Pacific voices to be heard. When I think about Pacific activism, I think of the word tautua, service. It's about centering our peoples, our lands, and our stories. And I stand on the shoulders of giants, those who have served our communities before me so that I might do the same now. That same service to our people has followed us across generations and across oceans. From the peaceful resistance of the Mau movement in Samoa to the young Pacific activists of the 1970s dawn raids here in Aotearoa to now, our young people have always been on the front lines of change.
We were just kids. We were just New Zealand-born kids who knew that things weren't right in the hood, which is Ponsonby Grey Lynn.
What brought us together was our common experience of racism. Many of our elders were too busy just putting food on the table and clothes on our back and a roof over our head, and they never had time or the luxury to protest. But we did. We knew that something needed to be done.
Obviously, activism is a big part of our communities and of our cultures. So how would you define Pacific activism?
Our activism doesn't start here. It starts in our home islands. We look back at our ancestry of activism. Groups like the Mau, for example, the things that they were doing in Samoa, boycotting the government stores, boycotting the plantations, these direct action, non-violent protest, non-violent resistance, these are the very same things that we are doing in our own generation. And it's the same things that we see happening now with the newer generation as well. It's a pattern that is throughout the Pacific.
The Pacific generation was the first to land on the doorstep in Aotearoa. It was our programs that forged the way for how the government needs to look after migrant groups coming into the country. Our TAB program, Tenants Aid Brigade, led the way for the development of the Tenancy Tribunal. That's what activism can do. Change will happen.
Today, the fight continues. Our communities face new battles, climate change, inequality, and health inequities. And just like the Panthers did back then, us young Pasifika are standing up and pushing forward. This generation is here to make a change, to challenge the norms, and to demand a better future. So tell us about yourself and your journey in activism.
Well, my name is Sia. I'm freshly 18. I just graduated from Howard College. But I would say my journey in activism, it started really young, back in year 9 and 10. It was when I really saw the gaps in education. And that's when I started things like Alofa Tutor in my school, got a part of Sisters United, and now I'm the founder and the CEO at Levi of Hope, which is a new movement for Pacific Brown young people.
Oh, beautiful. And tell us more about Levi of Hope.
Levi of Hope, we work in changing the narrative and challenging stereotypes that we see in the media, whether it's news or whether it's social media, and even maybe new policies that we see being rolling out. We challenge what that means for Pacific young people, how we are ultimately affected by that. There's still systematic racism being reinforced on Pacific youth. how we work into this space is that we actually stand up and we say no, that there is a truth, there is a story, there is a different narrative.
No matter what the type of oppression, whether it's environmental, whether it's through education, at the root of it all is the ideology and action and damage of racism. And that's what we all have in common with the young people that are standing up today. Back then, our tools were just, the coconut, the coconut wireless. And, but the tools that our young people have now is amazing, the social media, but it's being critical of that social media. They have to learn what is disinformation and misinformation.
We realize that we get talked down on a lot. The system itself, it's this missing gap of nurturing relationships, even cultural competency. We're very strong on, we want to build relationships with our student. We didn't want to be that same system or process. We bring in those tools, whether that's creating CVs or having confidence in your communications, or whether that's actually being able to get a license, simple things like that. And we also look for this bigger purpose to lift up and encourage young people. To have Pacific people in spaces like activism, it brings the stronger influence. Pacific people, they're at the forefront of the impacts. We can't just sit aside and just hope that people are going to sort these issues for ourselves, but that we can actually enable our own voices to step up.
Your activist work is to look after the va between those above, those beside, and those below. It's working with people, our tamariki, our children, our communities. And I learned that as a Panther.
Polynesian Panthers.
We've spoken to thousands of school children over the years. It's just trying to get people to understand what racism is through the Panther lens.
It's still to do with identity. We are still finding, when we go to schools, that is something that keeps popping up all the time.
See and learn what you're doing now, put it into action when you're old enough to vote.
Within mostly Indigenous communities, the Dawn Raids, for example,
Finding out about your roots.
one of those.
Today, those are the important things.
There is this panic that if there's too many Pacific people coming in, they're going to dominate and they're going to start taking over the economy, they're going to start taking over jobs.
What's facing us today is misinformation. Telling us that our history is what they are right, etc. So no, we've got our own stories. We've got our own ways of doing things. It's good to know that they're learning their true history. All what happened during the Dawn Raids, this is part of the healing, that the young ones know the truth. And as we know, the truth sets you free. What we're talking about, educate to liberate, finding out about the words and the meaning of words and the language, that liberates you, so you don't get afraid of using activism. You know what it means.
It encourages learners to think critically about the reality that they are in and not just simply accept it as being what it is. And the end goal through that criticality, that you will find your own agency and you will be able to stand up against the things that you are being critical of. So this generation and the succeeding generations that are going to have to live in a world that's going to be very different unless strides are made now. This generation have taken up that challenge and I think are making all the right moves.
When the heat gets high.
For Pacific youth, our power lies in unity. We are making a future where our voices matter, where we speak up and create real impact. I guess we have to remember that activism isn't doing all the work at once. So what would be your advice for a young Pacific person who wants to come into activism? How do they start?
For myself, who's still on that journey, it would be that you are enough. That you are Pacific enough, that you are island enough. You could even say brown enough, and that's not just referencing your skin color, but it's this idea that there's nothing wrong with not being able to know everything, but there's a journey that you can start being able to understand your cultural identity and how that plays into spaces, that it is okay.
We are rich in our history of standing up, totoko, our stories. So going forward, write about them, sing about them, draw about them. Your culture will put you in the right place.
The future of resistance is ours to build. It's alive in every voice and in every action, and it's just getting started.
Really, proud and satisfied that something that we did might have inspired somebody now, and we're grateful for the generations that have come and have picked up the baton and carrying it on into the future.